Thank you. We'll now return from closed session. We only have one reportable action item from closed session. The board met in closed session to discuss the appeal of the denial of the interdistrict transfer for student D. A motion was made by Trustee Ronish and seconded by Trustee Saavedra, and the board voted unanimously to uphold the denial of the interdistrict transfer. I'd like now to ask for a motion to approve the agenda, including time limits, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passed. Thank you. Do we have any public comment on the consent agenda? Do we have anyone that would like anything removed from the consent agenda for board consideration or discussion?
I can ask, you're going to ask if there's questions on the consent agenda?
That's what we're doing now, and we'll pull it off. And then because we'll vote on the consent agenda. If we want to discuss anything, it's not on the consent agenda, we pull it out. For instance, I actually would like to pull 14C.
Okay, I'd like to pull 14B, is that the leaves?
The personnel summary?
Personnel summary. Okay.
It's 14B.
Are there any other board members or student trustees that would like anything removed from the consent agenda that we can discuss? Okay, so now I'd like to ask for an approval of the consent agenda with not including items 14B and 14C.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carried. Thank you. So now, probably the highlight of our meeting, I'd like to go to student trustee reports. Would anyone like to start the student trustee reports this time? So try to just pick someone.
I can start.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren.
Okay, so Redwood did a one-day, $1 fundraiser last Thursday that was to support Butte County fire victims. So we researched a school district that was in need, and we worked with our assistant principal to figure out exactly how we'd get the funds to them. And then our AASB president worked with the presidents of other Marin County schools, not just in our district, all around Marin. And each of those schools also had their own one-day, $1 fundraiser. Last week. It was just on the day that worked best for each school. So for us, that was last Thursday because we have advisory, and that was really successful. Tomorrow we have Club Day, which is where all the clubs sign up for a table and then line them up, and students can sign up for a new club for the second semester, and then students can create new clubs. We also have our course workshops on Thursday, so students can look at classes to decide what they're taking for next year. And then there's also AP and honors classes meetings that are going on during lunch and other times during the day. The girls basketball team is performing really well right now. The wrestling team is doing really well, and we had a wrestling game night last week because they don't get recognized a lot. So we all came and watched them. Girls soccer is doing well. They had a game today. And then the tobacco use prevention educators, there's staff and students in that group, and they're going to be presenting information about vaping and smoking to the staff on Thursday.
Is there, I think when you say there, it's a $1 one day fundraising, does that mean you're just trying to have people donate $1? Or is this,
That's
okay.
the idea. Because sometimes it's too complicated because we have like week-long fundraisers that go on for a little while. So we just advertise to the whole school just on that Thursday to bring $1 in for each student.
Very good. Thank you. Cara.
Hi.
Hi.
So tomorrow at TAM we have our electives fair during tutorial. So all AP honors, any class more or less besides the classes that you like have to take. So besides core, I believe, every other class, core and PE, every other class is with students talking about trying to get kids to sign up for them. So like I'm presenting at the journalism table tomorrow, but you'll have CTE, AIM will be handing out applications. Our One Academy that we have, they're handing out applications to sophomores. All the different Englishes are presenting, so everyone's kind of excited for that, as well as our senior meeting is tomorrow. We had our winter rally last Friday, and we did all fit in the gym. Everyone was shocked. It went successfully. Everyone kind of had a fun time. We had a student versus staff basketball game, which I think was one of the favorite events that we've had in a while.
Who won?
They called it a tie.
Oh. Very, very, very strategic.
They
Yeah.
had one student ref and one teacher ref, so depends on who you ask. The improv show for our drama is next week, and tonight was the last night of underclassmen one act, so that's the one time that underclassmen get on the main stage and they perform like one 10 to 20 minute play, and they're really fun. My brother was in one. I thought it was funny. He messed up several times. It was funny. He flopped on the ground. Our breakthrough day is set now to be the week of the 25th after our midwinter break, or whatever that week is called. So everyone's kind of getting excited for that. The staff and admin are all kind of working together. Students have had the most input that they've ever had, and it's really student-driven this time versus 2 years ago it was really driven by Mr. Farr. Did I say spring sports started yesterday? Well, spring sports started yesterday. Everyone's super excited. Our winter sports teams are not doing as well as they have in past years, so everyone's kind of excited. They're putting their money on next season. So everyone's excited for a new era of sports. And that's it at TAM.
Oh, thank you. Maddie.
So at Drake, we had our winter formal, which was a big hit. Everyone definitely wanted it to be a big hit, and it was. It went really well. Last year we didn't do an off-site winter formal, but this one we did, and we took the chance, and the students showed that they could behave well, and everyone did, and there was arcade and popcorn, which went over amazingly. And there was 800 kids attended.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Which is a lot.
It's really
a big,
good.
big turnout for us.
It's most of your school.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really exciting. And there's like a silent disco. So yeah, it went really well. And then we also have 8th grade registration is opening. And also just regular class registration. And we had our open house last Thursday, which went well. And then also our girls basketball team has been doing really well. I was able to go to their game against San Marin, which they won by a lot. And they've been winning almost all of their games. So just wanting to really give them like a big shout out, because they don't always get the same support as the boys sports teams. So really focus on them because they've been doing amazingly this season. And then we had our winter rally last Friday, and an ex-Draker, or sort of current Draker, who's in team right now, and another Draker, so Jack Richardson, who's in team, and Ray Holmberg were both recognized for helping save the people at the beach a few weeks ago, I believe. So the Central Marin Police Force and the Ross Valley Fire Department came out and recognized the two boys for the incredible act of bravery that they did. And it was a really sweet and memorable event. And it was sort of definitely a feeling of reverence in the room.
Thank you, Maddie. Charlotte.
So at Tamascal, everything is going great. Our yearbook is kicking off its final countdown. We have 3 months left to get it done. One of the biggest challenges is getting enough photos, since there's really not that many students on campus at a time, or there's not many yearbook staff at campus at a time, so we require a lot on the actual students to email us photos. So the entire campus is just plastered in flyers, just telling the students and various themes to get us our photos, get us your senior photos, get us your freshman, sophomore, junior photos. We need them for the yearbook, because it can't be a yearbook without photos. Other than that, the yearbook staff has plotting a way to somehow do spirit days like the other schools do. Tamascal doesn't really have that, and we kind of want it. It might not be able to happen this year, but we're hoping somehow to get it done by next year. Another thing that's happening is so far this semester, Tamascal has been missing a supervised independent study tutor. Some call them supervisor, some call them tutor. It's basically the person who sits in the library or sys room and helps kids study, manages everyone, helps with simple computer problems. Overall, kids have been able to get along pretty well, but some things have been missed, just little things like the stapler has gone missing. We don't have access to simple resources like flashcards and paper that she would give out if you asked for it. And then some kids really used her tutoring sessions. Jenny was the old one, and she was fantastic at maths and sciences, and often kids really used her help. So, and I know we're getting a new SIS tutor soon, so hopefully they will be just as good as the past ones. And finally, last Thursday night was junior night. This was incredibly important for the juniors to learn about what their next year and a half is going to be. Julie Gannon, the college and career counselor, and Grace Aviles, the school counselor, presented just what is going to be happening, what they need to get done via testing, the ACT, the SAT, how to put together their college applications, the Common App, other applications, and they recommended that students get letters of recommendation as soon as possible. I highly recommend going to these junior nights. It was incredibly informative. Julie Gannon and Grace Aviles were incredibly wonderful at what they were presenting. The slideshow was great, and the information was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'll open it up if anyone has questions.
Could I ask each of the student trustees to comment on their trip to Sacramento, please?
I can start. I'm
All
in
right.
the middle, so I feel kind of weird starting, but that's okay.
Shall I contextualize that?
I thought it was super interesting. I don't think I understood really how the state government worked as well. I feel like the media doesn't pay as much attention to them since they operate well. That it was really interesting to learn about and kind of see it in action. I think also I didn't realize like how much education is talked about at the state level and how much that affects us, but also like doesn't affect us. So I thought it was really interesting to see it play out and like this doesn't affect us, but it could severely affect kids living one district over. So I don't know. I thought it was cool, interesting.
I enjoyed seeing how all the financial stuff happens. I take financial management and accounting classes at COM, so I really enjoy seeing how how everything happens financial-wise. So I think it was really interesting seeing how a government differs from a business per se, and seeing how it wasn't as small as our district is. It was the entire state. It really expanded my view.
Very good.
Well, I thought there were definitely some speakers that I didn't really understand what was happening, but I still was engaged. But there were definitely other speakers that connected a lot with what I'm learning in school right now. In AP Comp, my English class, we're learning a lot about education and how schools are funded and sort of the achievement gap. And so it was really interesting looking at that from the perspective of the state government. And then the BARC is also writing an editorial about our budget, so it was interesting to learn about funding statewide and how that could impact our district with the governor's new budget. So I thought it was really relevant.
Thank you.
It was my second year going, so I think this year I was able to follow along pretty well about what everyone was talking about and get all the acronyms, which is a big part of it, and like know the backstory to some of the debates. So I found it fascinating, and definitely it's interesting to see how like our district is having different problems than other districts, and like how what the state is sort of looking at and what decisions they might be making affects us, and especially like having read the sort of article about the Newsom's budget, and then also seeing like the nitty-gritty about how that's actually going to mean and like where it's vague and where it isn't. So I found it fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? The student trustees, Cynthia?
I have a question regarding the Drake dance. 800 is impressive, participation-wise. How much are the tickets?
I believe the tickets were $50, but they, I think, are less with a power package. And I need to explain
Power
that.
package.
You got that, sorry. Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you very much. That's always enjoyable. So the next agenda item is a superintendent report.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. So a few things. As January winds down, we tend to ramp up a lot of stuff around here. First, I wanted to say that I was able to attend the Drake rally where they honored the students who saved the swimmers, Jack Richardson and Ray Holmberg. I also want to note that a Redwood student, Wes Porter, was also part of that group, and then student Colby Payne, who goes to St. Ignatius in the city. Just a really nice, heartwarming story, and really brave of those boys. So it was really nice to see them honored in that way at Drake. It was a great rally, too. Also, there's much going on at the sites. We have course selection for next year is underway for our rising 10, 11, and 12th graders. And 9th grade enrollment is also happening. I feel like we always live 1 year ahead in some ways, like once January 1st hits, it's next year, literally and figuratively. So Drake's 9th grade registration day is Thursday this week, the 31st. TAM's is Saturday, February 2nd, and Redwood's registration day is Thursday, February 7th. And so for more information on scheduling or enrollment, people can go to the websites, and there's a lot of information posted on what to do and how to get that ball rolling if you're not. Spring sports started on the 28th, which is exciting and a little unbelievable that we're already there. And Corbett and I have completed our community forums on the budget reduction recommendation. I'd like to thank all of the students, parents, and community members who came out and who also provided feedback to us. All input will be taken into consideration, and we appreciate the time and effort people put in. So thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Measure J. Can I have a show of hands of any volunteers that are here from the Measure J? We have more for you than that clap, so give me a minute here.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Now on to the next agenda. Yeah. So actually, this was very timely because I'm first going to read you a note I received from Congressman Jared Huffman, and it was dated January 11th, and said, "Happy New Year and congratulations on the passage of Measure J. I am pleased the community continues to support investments in local education. These measures do not pass without a lot of community support and hard work on the part of many volunteers. Please extend my congratulations to your entire team." So this was very timely, as I said, and Dr. Topi and I were talking about it, and she asked me to try and jot down how many hours were put into the Measure J campaign. And so I first did the first brush. Then I thought, oh, I got to count, double that by, or multiply that by how many people did each of these tasks. And I stopped counting. It was well over 1,000 hours. And the thing that's unusual is that, like he said, part of many volunteers. Well, this campaign was a little different, and you know what I'm referring to, that based on the fact that we had to start late, and it was compressed into literally just a couple months with all the heavy lifting, there weren't a lot of volunteers. We didn't have an army of volunteers helping all of you that were taking the lead on so many tasks. And I gained such an appreciation being involved because up until that point, I always looked a little puzzled when anybody that had ever run a parcel tax before would shake their head and say it's so much work. And it was fear of panic in Laura Anderson's face when we'd be talking about it, trying to find somebody to run the campaign. And I gained an appreciation between planning all the events And I think of all the visits that many of you made to different organizations, going to the League of Women Voters, all the prep to do that and then doing it. The endorsements, I used to think, oh, what's the big deal? There's people plug in their name and it ends up on a website. I had no idea the steps that went into each and every one of these activities and all the back and forth, the phone banking. No, I had no idea what was involved. And I don't think you did either, Karen. She and I used to talk about that Dana definitely knew, and with all your work, but that makes me even more appreciative and us more appreciative, because you being the leaders of so many of these tasks, you did it knowing that you didn't have an army of volunteers and you might have to really jump in, and you did. And I think of all the times I got emails, or we'd be exchanging emails at 10 or 11 at night, and every single detail, and you still stood up, all of you, and took it on. And that is a reflection of just not only who you are, but our community and valuing our students, and just can't thank you enough. And we lucked out, we got the treasurer now is on the board, so there's no words, I guess, is what it comes down to, that this was a much heavier lift than I think even Jared Huffman realizes, because this wasn't something that we ramped up month after month and had a whole infrastructure in place. It was a mad dash, and look what you did. And I can't thank you enough, and I know that we all feel the same way. Your leadership really showed through, and it was always a pleasant surprise. We were always finding out something new that was happening over in one of the schools, and all the students at the end holding up the thank you signs. It was like people didn't stop working. So thank you. Can't thank you enough. And we do have cupcakes, and we do have a certificate for you. And I think Tara will be presenting the certificates.
Can we add words to, or after?
Yeah,
Now.
we were going to do it after, but we could do it now.
No,
why-
I just want to make sure, like, you can present this.
Okay. We thought we'd give.
the names off, since I have to go, I don't want them to have to come all the way over
Okay,
here.
why don't I give this?
They're here.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure,
Yeah.
because there's some people that aren't here that I want to recognize. So I'm going to do the co-chairs last, but Lori Dubin is not here tonight, but she was, we all know, we wouldn't have made it without her. She was incredible with fundraising and planning events. She is not here. I don't see Jennifer Ginsburg, I don't think. It's unfortunately, she's not here. She was also very involved with the Facebook page and the website, which was a constant, as you can imagine, scramble. And Pascal Gregory is not here. She was, I had such a pleasure watching her work. I'd never met her. I'd always heard her name. It was kind of this person we always heard about over in Fairfax, and it was quite something. Stephanie Hellman.
Yay!
So we do have, Stephanie, would you come up? Thanks. Thank you. And I don't see Hildy here. Is Hildy here? No. So Hildy did what did we call it? I can't remember. Voter circle, that's what it was, yeah. Oh, I see somebody that just walked in. She thought she got away, but I skipped her name. So Laura Anderson, you missed all the well wishes, Laura, but come on forward and get your, yeah. And Ethan Muller, who we should give you a headset for, thank you. And Emily Olhorn is not here, but she worked tirelessly along side by side with many of us, but especially Lori Dubin, and I think she had another engagement at Tam High. And I don't see Tracy here, Tracy Van Hooser, I don't see her here either. But I almost forgot Karen and Dana. I was waiting for the last, and I started to get the cupcakes. Okay, so Karen Lobica and Dana Steele. I almost want you both to come up at the same time. But thank you so much. So Dana, you and I have this thing in common. So I just got mine off, and I didn't know you were getting one. Yeah, we throughout the campaign we kept having the same bandages. But so before we break to cupcakes, I want to give the other board members a chance to and thank you, Kevin. We didn't make you a certificate. We gave you a nameplate instead. Yeah. And I should say Kevin had a really hard job. He was one of these people that he went to a meeting and the consultant said, being treasurer is not that bad. You know, you have to file a few papers and, you know. So Kevin goes, oh, I'll help. And it was what, at least, it was 20 hours a week sometimes. I mean, I think it was easily that. Yeah, it was a lot. So now you're doing this with us, so thank you. Yeah. So now I'll open it up. I know you wanted to say something, Cynthia.
Yeah, I don't need to use that. Do I need to use that for the, I do. I just wanted to say, you're being thanked tonight, but we all know that working on a campaign like that, asking the community to voluntarily tax itself for something that they think the state should fund is a thankless job. So thank you very much for working so hard under such a concentrated deadline, and you have made our jobs a lot easier. And I, for one, am extraordinarily appreciative of that. So thank you for your hard work.
And I think Tara Topier would like to say something.
I just want to say, starting this job on August 28th, I was really, really appreciative. I sat down in a meeting and I was like, they're like, no, you don't do anything. And I was like, wait a minute, I have to do something. But I was just so appreciative to meet the campaign committee and to have the campaign in such capable hands and to see the amazing amount of hours and energy and love for this school district that you all put into this campaign was really, really heartwarming. It reaffirmed for me why I've spent 17 years in this district and why I chose to continue in this job. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Any other comments? And Lauren, you must be very proud of your mother. I know she's proud of you. Yeah, she's like, I just had to point out that you're related because, I knew that,
I'll say something, friend.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I would be remiss if I also didn't thank Leslie and Tara and Corbett and a lot of other people, even Mary, a lot of people, the union leadership, a lot of people stepped up to help us. And so while we may be getting the thanks now, and there's a ton of other people, really everyone who helped, it takes a village. Everyone does what they can with the time that they have and the skill set they have. And we drew on a lot of experience. And so it was an amazing effort. And I have to say, working with Karen was just a highlight. We were friends before. We are still friends. We talked 45 times a day. And it was a joy. And we always said, if you're going to do a big job, this was a great one. We were in, we were out, we won, which was wonderful. And we got to meet some really awesome people along the way that we didn't know. One little tidbit that I'll share, Stephanie and I and Jen Ginsburg. Jen went to Redwood for a couple of years and then transferred to Branson, so she has some Redwood blood. Stephanie I leveraged, she and I are classmates from Redwood and friends and graduates. So you had a lot of alumni working on this campaign as well. And so when you think about kind of the generations coming back, this community loves public education. All of us who stepped up love this district. It's because of all of you and your leadership that we were willing to put our reputations and our names behind this and say, look, we got your back. We're going to go work with the community. And we live in a community who supports public education. So we are very, very, very grateful and glad that we could have you guys start your official jobs with a better situation than you would have been in. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
And I just wanted to say thank you from all the students. I don't think many kids even realized we were passing a personal tax until everyone was like, go outside and wave posters, go outside and wave posters. But I think even if most of us didn't know or don't know still that it happened. Thank you for saving our education and the programs that we love by passing this.
Are we ready for cupcakes? I think we are. Thank you. So we'll recess and have some refreshments, and then we'll get back to work. Thank you. Thank you. We'll return from recess, and now we're on item, I better double check, I believe it's 13B. Thank you, Barbara. And we will hear from Kim Stifler on low-performing student block grant. Thank you.
Hi, this is a new table setting. I like it. I'm Kim Stifler. I am the Senior Director of Curriculum and Instruction and also the Tamalpais Principal. There we go. Welcome. Nice to meet you all. Go. On. There we go. Okay, so yay, we got some more money. So in our context, it was really awesome to receive a grant allocated to our district, $198,000 that we can spend over 2 years. The parameters of the grant are that it needs to be spent on low-performing students, specifically in English language arts and mathematics. And there are some further parameters on it. The allotment we received is on a per-pupil basis, using the students as they were identified using this criteria. The purpose is to, again, support student achievement, but to not duplicate other funding sources from state or federal, so not English learners, not low income, not foster youth, and not special ed. So it's another bucket of low-performing students, again, identified by the Smarter Balance scores for ELA and math, and that we need to present a plan to you, ask for your approval, and then there will be another follow-up report at the end of the 2 years. Outlined in the grant is you need to use these resources to support student achievement. Suggestions, but not limited to, are professional development, specifically for certificated staff, instructional materials, or any other additional supports for students. That's the grant language. So we put our heads together to come up with a plan. One, it's hard to isolate these particular students, so we were looking at areas where we would catch those students among others. And we were also looking to support programs that already existed, given our current financial context. We don't have first of all, it's only 2 years. We didn't want to bring in something new necessarily, and we wanted to offset existing costs, which we could put some stuff back into the general fund, which is going to be helpful. And it's not the time to bring in more staffing, et cetera, obviously, to support some new items. So that was one of the things we looked at. So we do have an instructional coaching program that was originally funded with some educator effectiveness funds 3 years ago. We were able to sustain it this year while we eliminated teacher leadership with some generous support from the Parent Foundation. So we decided $75,000 for coaching release periods. That would equate to 1 full-time release period per comprehensive school, so Drake, Redwood, and TAM. And then we're looking for alternative funding sources to round out the program. If we are bringing in new coaches, they would need some professional development themselves to learn how to be effective coaches to support their colleagues on instructional improvement, so that's the $25,000. And we have an estimate. This is based on the clients that our coaches have served over the past 3 years. Be approximately 30% of our veterans teachers have accessed this service in the past, so that is our prediction moving forward. And then we're also looking at a merge of our instructional coaching and mentor model for next year, which would then bring this to hitting all new teachers that are new to the district. what do our coaches do? Well, it's optional for all veteran teachers, and it would be required for new teachers. Creates a more safe, trusting, relationship support. We do staff-led workshops, so that could be, professional development workshops at staff meetings, for example. After-school learning cohorts around a particular instructional strategy, like, positive relationships or teacher clarity or differentiated instruction. One-on-one and small group coaching, again, in confidential setting. Instructional rounds where teams of teachers go into other teachers' classrooms and they observe and learn and pick up best practices from their peers and then go apply it in their own classrooms. And then new teacher support, so transitioning new teachers to the district. The idea is that the better we teach, the better students will do. And we can also, target certain classes as needed by the students identified in this grant too. Our next existing program we looked at supporting is SOAR. This is our Students Organized Against Racism. We have around 80 students across the district participating in this, and it's a very expensive program. I want to say maybe $18,000 to $20,000 total per year to run. We do bring in a highly qualified, amazing facilitator, Dr. Lori Watson. I know many of you have seen her. And this is essentially a Courageous Conversations Beyond Diversity training for students that raises their awareness and then also gives them strategies to be able to engage in those conversations around race and equity with their peers. So that's why we estimate the impact is really strong on these 80, but then more systematic in those peer-to-peer influences. There are 4 to 5 full days with Dr. Watson with that group. Again, they learn how to talk about race, how to combat microaggressions, racism, and bias. And then the students are then equipped with tools, protocols that many of you are familiar with if you've been to that training to engage in those conversations with their peers. Again, the idea around this is that a lot of our low-performing students are students of color who might not necessarily be identified in those other areas. And by creating a more safe space for those students and unpacking issues of race and implicit bias will create a more positive learning experience, and that their learning would improve. Our next program is AVID. This again is an existing program. A couple years ago, we started sort of morphing some of our academic workshop sections in our school day into AVID sections and sending groups of teachers to AVID trainings. Right now we serve approximately 200 students through AVID classes at the 3 comprehensives, all grade levels. And it's amazing, the teachers are absolutely loving it. It really adds a curriculum to those additional support classes, and it's all college prep. Again, more strategies, tools, ways to engage in dialogue, ways to do executive functioning, access learning, et cetera. The comprehensive schools have expressed, because it is so popular and it's so detailed in terms of the curriculum that are in those classes, that would be helpful to have a coordinator position overseeing that program at each school that is a teacher within AVID. And basically they would be responsible for coordinating those classes, the curriculum, the instruction, helping to monitor student progress. And many times our low-performing students are the ones that are identified to take AVID, so it would hit that. So that would be $2,000 for each coordinator stipend at each big school. And then again, if those teachers have not yet been through training, another $2,500 for PD for the coordinators or teachers to make sure that they are up to speed on their own learning around this. More on AVID. Again, it's a class in the school day that exists, designed to improve right college readiness and close opportunity and achievement gaps. And this would be an additional coordinator position or stipend, so it's likely that one of the existing AVID teachers would then take on the role of coordinating the program and receiving that extra stipend. And this would be, again, a new addition, but I think it gets us up to speed. So because the grant's allocated towards math and English, we have these groups of teacher leaders that are in these committees that we call task forces. Math task force exists, the science task force exists, the social studies task force exists. We don't have one for English. currently. So the idea would be to add that so that there would be the core four, having the task force. A lot of what these committees do, they look at student performance data, they collaborate around course development, alignment to content standards, instructional strategies, how to reach all students. English has expressed a need for more articulation, horizontally, vertically, looking at books, and culturally responsive materials, et cetera. So they would be, I think, they have expressed a need for this, and the money for 2000 comes from an estimate around paying teachers hourly on like every month or 6 weeks to meet after school in line with the other task forces. Summary, so this would be our plan for each year for 2 years. And we are, again, required to monitor our impact. So we would be looking at specific data. And we're going to particularly examine state testing scores, again, in ELA and mathematics, check out UC eligibility and graduation rates of these student groups, do some staff and perception surveys, and also gather some student feedback. We received input on this from the superintendent's cabinet, principal team, and also the curriculum council. The curriculum council is a team of teachers and administrators, one teacher per district department represented, so all subject areas, plus one site principal per school, and then Tara and I sit on that as well. Questions?
Let's open up for questions.
We can go in order.
Okay, why don't you start, Barbara?
Will there be an improvement of attendance as a metric for any of these youngsters in these programs?
Well, typically the academic achievement and attendance are highly correlated, and so if kids also feel more connected and that they're learning and engaged, they're going to improve in their attendance. So that would be something we could also consider. I think it's all kind of, they typically trend together. You get one, you get the other.
Thank you.
So I have 3 questions. So you mentioned that, I think, that the low-performing students have been identified through test scores, so CASP or SBAC?
Correct.
Okay. And is that from their elementary school? Because right now, CASP is only given junior year. So how are we going to both identify them with CASP and then monitor them with CASP? Because they won't take it again.
Right. That is one of the so we'll look at their 8th grade scores.
Okay.
And then we'll look at the 11th grade scores and we'll put them together and see what we get. And then ideally track them as much as we can longitudinally, but it's going to be a challenge.
Okay. And then you had money up there for instructional coaching and then money for SOAR regarding microaggression and bias training. Will teachers get bias training in the instructional coaching or as part of SOAR? Because that's a factor.
Yes, all of our instructional coaching is anchored in our equity work
Okay.
and improvements to instruction, and they have to date all received extensive training around that. We would open these positions probably back up if we're able to continue them, and then if we get in some new teachers, that would be the money that we'd use to make sure they get that training,
Okay.
that extra $2,500.
And then the third question I had was, you had $6,000 for the AVID coordinators. How many AVID classes or teachers are at each site to be coordinated?
Do you know the exact
or
answer to that
approximately?
one?
Yeah, so Redwood, so next year, there will be 4 AVID teachers
Okay.
at each site, so that would be 12 across the district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other trustee before I go to the student trustees? Okay, I have one question, but I can wait, so I'll open it up to the student trustees. Do you have any questions?
My question was about the admin teachers.
Yeah.
Good. I just
Oh.
wanted money there.
This is a minor question. In terms of reporting requirements to the state, so we get a lump sum of funding, and it's for a 2-year period, and we have to demonstrate how it was used and our metrics. Do we have to go any deeper than that? For instance, if you decide you want to move some of the funds, if it was when you get into this, you realize, gee, maybe I can move some of the funds from SOAR to one of the other areas. Are you free to move the money back and forth depending on what you start to determine as you move forward? If it Or are you pretty much locked in?
My understanding is that we should be following the plan that you approve.
Okay, so you actually okay.
It would have to be, we would have to bring a change back to the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what I actually submit on the Word document that you received, all those prompts are the ones that go directly to the state. So you'll see you have what I will submit on this go-around. And then the next go-around will be, how did you do and what was your impact?
Okay, but between the years then, if you after a year's worth of work, if you decided you wanted to, you just would bring it back to the board, you would still have the ability to bring it back here? Okay.
Yes.
One good thing, if I can add about this, is that we used another grant to start AVID, the College and Career Readiness. So it's also some consistency, so we've been collecting data. AVID also has, it's research-based, and it has a ton of data built into it, data collection. So it kind of meshes nicely.
Okay, thank you. So before so you have a question, Tara?
The idea behind SOAR is that the students of color will feel more accepted, or like, we're not well accepted, like welcome at school in a way. Is that the idea behind it?
Yeah,
I don't know what-
it's really to educate all students about race and
I'm a part of the SOAR program at TAM.
awesome. So yeah, ultimately I think it's about creating a positive context and culture for all people.
There's a lot of research behind student achievement being directly related to the climate on the campus and whether or not they feel, there's something called stereotype, that there's a lot of things that happen for students who feel alienated that diminish their ability to learn.
Thank you.
Are there any public comment before we put a motion? Any other discussion here before someone? Okay, can I have a motion then to approve the low-performing student block grant?
So moved. So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Would you like to have a preferential vote on this? Because this seems like it's something that's more close to what you do. What we often offer the student trustees is that you can also vote, and we call it a preferential vote. No? Okay. Can I ask the students, because it's kind of nice for us to hear officially. Sometimes someone actually does vote in a contrary way, and it's just kind of, it's helpful to us too, and provide you an opportunity as well to share your views. So I'm going to ask all four of you if you could say aye if you're in favor. All those in favor say aye. Okay, that passed as a preferential vote. Normally we do it before we do the final vote count, but I thought of it right when we did the count. So thank you. It's just good to know. Okay, so we'll move on to the next. Thank you, Kim. I'm sorry I didn't say thank you. Yeah, Dr. Stifler. Okay, so now we'll move on to item C, approval of the Public Agency Retirement Services, PARS, and we have Mr. Lars Christensen presenting that to the board.
Student trustees, Dr. Topier, President Lundgren, Governing Board, good evening. As you are aware, in November of 2018, the board approved a relationship, if you will, with the Public Agency Retirement Services, PARS is the acronym. And the reason for doing so was that we were looking to develop a plan whereby we could generate some cost savings via some early retirement with both our certificated and classified bargaining unit members, I should say. Mary, if you would flip to the next slide, please.
Do you have the clicker?
Oh, I have the clicker. Yes, I do. Just want to make sure Mary was actually awake and paying attention to my presentation. So, as I say, we contracted with PARS for the purpose of placing a retirement incentive in front of our classified certificated unit members. And in doing so, we offered the incentive to our members. Essentially what it entailed was if they would agree to separate from the district by June 30th of 2019, they would receive in annuity form 80% of their pay generated by the 18-19 school year.
One time.
Excuse me?
One time.
One time, yes. But it would be in annuity form. It would not come in a lump sum. And there were actually 14 options on how to receive that money from lifetime. The shortest period of time was 5 years. There were some assumptions made in creating this incentive and developing these calculations. On the certificated side, an employee must be 55, a minimum of 55 years of age with 5 years of district experience, or 50 years with 30 years of service. That really mimics what you see in CalSTRS. On the classified side, it was age 50 with 5 years of district service, and as I mentioned earlier, you must separate from the district on or before June 30th of 2019. I mentioned 80% of their final compensation amount for the 18-19 school year, and the replacement salaries on average on the certificated side would be approximately $75,000. On the classified side, remember, classified are essentially hourly employees. Their salary schedule consists of a series of ranges based on the job that they hold, and then there are 8 steps. So for classified non-management, our classified group, roughly 74% of their existing salaries. Should note on that last slide, today, currently, the average cost of a certificated full-time employee is approximately $139,000. Right now, the district covers health care for our active employees. The cost of health care this year for both certificated and classified employees is $18,209 per person. Per contract, we do cover retiree benefits from age 60 to 65 in both units, so those costs would continue. Embedded in our current contractual agreements, we do have retirement incentives baked into the contract, and you see it there before you. It's on the certificated side, it's $24,000. There are some eligibility requirements associated with that. On the classified side, it's 20% of a base salary or $5,000, whichever is greater. The PARS program would be in lieu of these contractual incentives. We're not giving both. It'd be one or the other. Theoretically, if the board approves PARS, an employee could opt for the contractual incentive, though they would be losing money if they choose to do so. We don't anticipate that. The district obviously needs to fund the PARS plan. We would do so in incremental payments over a 5-year period. And again, the persons on the receiving end of the annuity had actually 14 different options to choose from, with 5 years being the minimal option for payout. So, where the rubber hits the road, summary of savings. If you look at the top box, please. On the certificated side, that employee group, there were 71 eligible employees who were 55 or older with the requisite years of service. Of those 71, 24 persons have signed up for the PARS program, which constitutes approximately 34% of those eligible employees. On the classified side, there were 72 eligible employees. 19 chose to sign up, and that's roughly 26, well, not roughly, it's 26.39%. So you see the percentage of retirements before you in the total calculations there. With regard to savings, on the certificated side, our hope is if the board approves this plan and 24 people step away, our hope is to not replace everybody person by person. We hope to be able to reduce the number of members in our unit. So, but even if we replaced everyone, there would still be a savings to the district. And you see the numbers there in front of you. On the classified side, in order for this to work, in other words, in order for there to be a savings to the district, we must not replace at least 4 persons to generate savings. Again, on the certificated side, even if we chose to replace everyone, there's a savings. It's a classified group, we have to not replace 4 persons at minimum. And then I'll blame Corbett for the size of the numbers there. He makes it hard on all of us. But one very important note, and the reason we put this up here for you is you've seen this many, many times before, is that if the board approves the PARS program for both units, or theoretically one unit, not the other, but let's right now say both units, there's a savings. However, that savings has already been calculated into these potential reductions. As you are aware, concurrent with this PARS program, we've commissioned and have been actively involved with the Fiscal Advisory Committee over this past fall semester. They have come up with a series of recommendations that have been presented to the superintendent, who in turn will be bringing those recommendations, perhaps not word for word, but a series of recommendations to the governing board in the month of February. Any savings accounted for in PARS is already worked into the calculations of these potential savings via the recommendations going forward. So that's a really important thing to note. At that point, or at this point, questions or comments?
I'll just open it up to the board first. I think you already answered this, and I'm sorry I forget.
No
but
apologies
in terms
necessary.
of the forecasting, are you assuming worst case scenario or best case scenario? Are you assuming that we're not replacing, or we are replacing all of the certificated, for instance?
I don't believe we'll replace all the certificated
But I guess
employees.
on this piece of paper, on the projection, you assumed, you said you included the PARS in this calculation.
Oh, yes.
So are
yes.
you just assuming, okay. I just wonder if we were a conservative
Yep.
estimate or.
Conservative estimate,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Do any student trustees have any questions?
I have a question. Just for, so the certified are being paid $75,000, while the classified are like 74.7% of their current salary?
No.
Is that accurate? Okay.
If a certificated person, meaning a teacher essentially, steps away via resignation or retirement, and that's an important point too, is that our interest is that we will be sorry to see them go, but our interest with regard to finances is that they separate from the district. So truthfully, we don't care if they resign or retire. That really is a personal decision. Once they step away, if they step away via this program, per board approval, they will receive 80% of their current salary in annuity form. And that can be received by them in 14 different ways. The shortest amount of time they can receive that money is over a 5-year period. The longest amount of time is a lifetime, the remaining years of their life. There's no lump sum payout.
I think the question is about the 75, that's the cost of replacing.
The teacher.
So those
okay,
are
yeah.
assumptions based into how do they calculate the savings. The idea would be that for the cost of replacing somebody those are the cost of replacement.
Yeah, and to Dr. Topier's point, right now today, the average cost, meaning from the teacher at the top of the salary schedule to the newest teacher at the bottom of the salary schedule, actually reverse, because at the top you're new, at the bottom you're veteran. The average cost of all of our teachers is $139,000. If those folks choose to step away, the replacement cost is approximately $75,000 or whatever that number is.
Okay, thank you, Lars. If you, do you have any questions, Cynthia? Yeah.
No, I was just going to say thank you for a very clear presentation. And then also for the audience to know that even with the assumption of, right, because we talked about various assumptions, whether we replace everyone or whether we have no replacements for certificated, that's also built within the staffing structure that we have. So we're not just eliminating classes or eliminating,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This does not equate to elimination of program at all.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. So I'd like to open it up for any public comment, and I think we have, sorry, I have to change my glasses here, or where I look through them. So we have these yellow slips available for people that want to make public comment. You're not required to do this, but it's helpful to us with the meeting minutes. So we do have Melissa Bowman. If you could step forward, and again, it doesn't preclude any of the rest of you from commenting as well, but we'll let you comment now. Thank you.
Yes, hello, good evening. At the last meeting, I shared with you my reluctance to turn in a resignation packet before I know whether or not my position will be eliminated. And you may be aware that each of the librarians at Drake, Redwood, and Tamalpais met the criterion for age and service with the district for the offer. Coincidence? Lars Christensen confirmed via an email message to me that the district is placing no limit on the number of eligible employees participating in the PARS program. All employees opting into the program must finish out their contract year in June of 2019. Benefits will not be calculated until contract negotiations have been agreed upon. Benefits will actually begin being paid out until August. So before you accept or reject the item before you, please do the following. Make a motion to amend so that the item reads this way. Certificated employees whose positions are affected by district layoffs shall have an extended deadline to enroll in the program if it is determined that their positions are eliminated for the 2019-2020 school year. Second the amendment, vote to accept the amendment, and finally, vote on the motion with the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any clarifying comments, or does anyone else on the board have any other clarifications? Okay, seeing none, thank you again, Lars. Doesn't sound like there's any further questions for you unless you have any clarifying comments.
Just with that, we respectfully request.
Oh, wait, if you have a comment, you need to come up, please. If you come to the podium, and if it's an easy question to answer, he can answer it now, otherwise we'll get back to you, but please come to the podium and just.
I think he'll be able to answer it.
Okay.
Because he has command of the presentation. Could you go back to the second to last slide?
It's not in present, no. It's in presentation.
Just,
She wants you to go back.
no, next, keep going down. Just second to last slide.
Is it this one, Lars? This one right here?
Multi-year.
One up.
One up.
Yeah, that one. So I'm trying to remember exactly how you positioned it, but it had to do with breaking even in the 4, this netting down to the 4. So this is out to the group. We can't rescind the offer now, right? I mean.
If the board approves the program, the separations become final.
Okay, that's what I needed to understand. Thank you.
Any other public comment before I ask for a motion? Any other discussion? I think we've covered it. Yeah, I think.
So just, we've separated them, so there's a motion.
Right, for each one.
Yeah,
For,
on each one.
for C and D,
Yeah.
or D and
Pull the
E.
agenda back up, please.
So the C is the certificated.
Okay, yeah, C and D.
Yeah.
So President Lundgren, if I may, we actually would ask.
Divided it in two.
That, yeah, we
Yeah.
would ask that you act on each unit separately.
Right.
Because the calculations, of course, are
Correct.
different. So I would begin with the certificated unit and respectfully ask for a motion for
For C,
approval.
for the, so we'll start with the certificated first, which is item C, approval of the Public Agency Retirement Services Supplementary Retirement Plan for Certificated Non-Management Employees. Can I ask for a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you, that passed. And now we'll move on to item D. And I'm going to ask for a motion for the approval of the Public Agency Retirement Services Supplementary Retirement Plan for classified non-management employees. Thank you, Cynthia.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're on item E, which is the Fiscal Advisory Process Report, and that's Dr. Topier.
Yes, sorry.
So just wanted to report out a few things. The Fiscal Advisory Committee met last night as part of the process to take into consideration the input we got from staff, students, parents, community members over the last several weeks, and reconsider their recommendation if need be. And so that process took place last night. And at the same time, we wanted to share the letter from MCOE, which was a sort of integral part of our process last night. It's attached to the board agenda. What's important about this letter was from the county, based on our first interim, essentially saying that, congratulations, you have been, we got a positive certification, but requiring us to provide a detailed plan of how we are going to realize the $3 million worth of reductions to the budget, because as the multi-year projection that Lars just showed indicates, there is a line in there that says $3 million reduction. And so while they accepted that at first interim as providing us with a positive certification, at second interim, they are going to require that we have a detailed plan that will show that we can realize those cuts by July 1st of 2019. And that second interim, will be presented at the March 12th board meeting. So I just wanted to reiterate that the board at the next board meeting, February 12th, will have time to look at the recommendation that comes forward for reductions and discuss it. No action will be taken on the February 12th board meeting, or no action will be requested. That action will be requested on the February 26th, and that the formal resolution accompany our second interim on March 12th.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I just second, Tara was talking about the meeting last night, but was the first one that I had attended and was impressed with the engagement of the volunteers who are volunteering their time and taking the job very seriously and putting together a recommendation.
It's good to hear. Thank you. Any public comment on, and student trustees? You'll have your chance again, but any of you have a question or comment on the fiscal advisory update? No? Okay. Any public comment on the fiscal advisory update?
I think we have. They'll say 13E. I'm not sure if they.
Okay. Okay, I just want to double check before I move on in case there is a misunderstanding. I have here that David Patterson would like to comment on 13E. Is David here? No, is that you?
Comment now or during general?
Okay, okay. If it's specific to this, you're welcome to now. The last time to comment is for items that are not on the agenda. So if it's specific, is it kind of a gray area? You're not sure? Okay, then we can wait. Okay, then you're right on. That's or spot on. I didn't mean right on, but spot on. Okay, so we'll wait on that. Thank you. Okay. So next item is board norms and procedures review. We had our meeting, the first meeting in January, and we held, it was a workshop format with the board, and we went through our norms and board meeting norms, as well as protocols for various activities that the board takes part in. And we didn't quite finish, and we also realized that this deserved more time. So there was two things. One, I believe we wanted to come back and focus on the board meeting norms and see if any board member wanted to strike any of these or add anything. So let's focus on the norms, not the board, the section up above, which is more general board behavior. And then in particular, discuss whether we wanted to, at the end of each meeting, reflect on whether we were successful at meeting the norms and any place we could do better. And we would assign one person that would be trying to take notes from that standpoint and present it. We had some kind of a loose consensus at the end, but we thought we should revisit that. And then we also were in a bit of a rush going through some of the meeting board protocols. So I first want to ask, before we focus on the norms, has anyone revisited the board meeting protocols and would like to add anything to any of the protocols or strike any?
I'll start. So I would like to add, I don't know if it's the board meeting norms or I forget what the material that I gave you. Somewhere I would like to see, and I don't know if it's appropriate here, but speaking with one voice as a board.
Okay, let's see. I think I saw that somewhere. You're right.
And it might be in one of the protocols later, but, and I don't know. So I think that's important to have somewhere.
It's respecting the majority of the board and speaking with one voice regarding board decisions.
So that's in the norms. What are we doing with these?
The bottom one, tonight we were going to focus on the meeting itself.
Right.
But the top one, we will continue to refine those, but we wanted to first make sure we got the board meeting norms done. And if we have time, we can definitely talk about that as well.
I would move to strike number 5 on the board meeting norms, as I think that's included in number 2.
Okay.
And then I would like to strike number 6 because that's vague.
Yes.
And doesn't serve any purpose, and is going to be situation dependent on what issue is before the board.
I think item 6 really is almost reflects item 7. It's really, if people just are hearing each other and say, I agree with what so-and-so said, rather than keep repeating it, I think you're right there. I think the one thing I was considering adding to the board meeting norms was committing to no surprises. And that's whenever possible. It's really that if you know something is a showstopper, for you to alert the superintendent that that you have some serious issues within an item, or you don't have enough information, so that you don't come to the meeting and throw a skunk on the table. That you allow the ability for someone to correct the situation.
Sorry, I just had a vision of a skunk on the table. I'm pretty
there's all sorts of phrases like that. What is it? The bird that comes in and does this thing and then takes off. That's the other one that you hear. So just avoid that kind of a behavior. You haven't heard that? And then speaking one voice, I want to clarify because it can be taken. I remember when I was sitting in the audience and I heard this one, I misunderstood the board, and I thought what they were saying was you all had to say the same thing, rather than, no, you're elected as democratic representatives of the community. You're going to have various opinions, but when it comes to board decisions and the board moving forward, you are speaking with one voice.
I think it's also important to note in that the board only has authority as a board. And I think, with speaking with one voice, what that says to me is that you're committing to that, and no one board member is making promises or making that the board is collective, is where the authority is, and not in any one individual.
No, it's good. So board meeting norms so far, we've struck number 5 and number 6, and I requested that we add the no surprises, so that would be number 10. Oh, you're right, thank you. Especially now that we've taken a couple off, actually, I have number 8. So does anyone else on the board have anything you'd like added or removed on the bottom half for board meeting norms? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we'll move on to kind of reconfirming, but making sure everyone's on the same page, that we will, at the beginning of each board meeting, have someone volunteer to not be a timekeeper, but be an observer with the lens of, are we staying within the norms, so then we can kind of discuss it at the end. Do you want to expand on that at all, Cynthia? Because it sounds like Kentfield does that, and I've heard that's very helpful.
Yeah, and I was just thinking of the timekeeper because that seems like it occurs more frequently. But yes, so what we did is one person would volunteer to read the norms at the beginning of the meeting, and then that same person would revisit the norms at the end of the meeting and pick one that we did well and one maybe that we needed to grow in.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, Dan, are you okay with doing that? I'm not asking you to do it, but I mean, are you? How do you?
Sure, I see a lot on the agenda in coming months here, but so I wondered about starting immediately, but could do so.
Yeah.
Obviously, in some ways, these are more important during this time, but.
Yeah. It's, and I guess, and since you've done it, it's not like you go through one by one.
It takes about a minute to read them at the start of the meeting, and it takes about a minute to revisit them at the end of a meeting.
So maybe you'll volunteer at the first meeting to be that person, so we can see how it goes. Kevin, do you have any comments, or you're okay with it all? How about you, Barbara? Okay. Are you good with that? Okay. So
I just wanted to add too. I think for admin, it helps. We do this in our admin meetings, in our leadership meetings. We call it a process checker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, we identify somebody at the beginning of the meeting, the same thing. Just like, hey, we probably could have done a little better here, like not being distracted on our devices, but we were really good at completing, like sometimes completing the agenda is a norm. Like we're going to stay on time and complete an agenda. Actually, one thing on the board meeting norms that's not on there that I think was on the Kent, how quickly I forget. The Kentfield one was focusing on the needs of all students. There was something in there about focus on students, because that a lot of times was the one that we looked at as either having done well or needed to do better. Do you have that?
Yeah,
Do you still have that list? Or
I
can get another
do, and
copy.
I'm of two minds of that.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth,
To
because
focus on the needs of all students, or having
I
it as
think we
norms?
need to definitely. Yeah, we wouldn't be here if that wasn't our goal. But sometimes a board member will have an opinion or vote a certain way, and it has nothing. They are thinking of all students, but it's characterized as they must not be. I guess I just don't. I want to be careful how we use it, because it's. I would hope board members, that's all you're doing, and it's a given, and it really is more of part of the discussion of whatever agenda item or how your behavior is throughout the meeting. I don't know. I've had you know where it's coming from. I used to hear people say, what did they say? It used to bother me. It had to do with things are becoming adult issues and not student issues. And I thought, well, no, adults don't come out. The adults that I saw coming out, they got emotional, and we heard a lot of, but it all came back to the students. It manifested as.
Which I think can be helpful when people get too far off track because the way I see it is focusing on the educational or the needs of all students is the core of our work. And so everything supports that, or is parallel to that, or is supportive of that. Yes, it is a given, but sometimes deliberations might forget that, or it's important to remind attendees at board meetings, because the norms are for the board, but they're also for the audience, right? And educate our audience as to the purpose of the board and the parameters that the board's working under.
Well, I'll defer to the group. I'm not thrilled about that one, but I'll speak with one voice afterwards and say.
I have a question. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
With the sort of announcing what the board did well and what the board did poorly thing, have specific examples or just do an overall feeling, because that might address the issue if it's specifically this thing wasn't on track with that, and then people could be like, well, it actually is because teachers'
that's what,
wellness affects.
Yeah, no, that was what I was. Yeah, thank you. You helped explain where I was going.
So the question was, if for the sort of
the glows and grows,
report,
yes,
yeah, is if the person will give specific examples. Or would that sort of add too much time to the?
No, you might give us, right, I don't think you would just, we don't just say, oh, we did really well on number 1 and we didn't do very well on number 6, right? You would say, we did well on number 1 in the area of X in the meeting, right? And when we constantly interrupted one another on the issue of adopting the PARS package, we didn't do very well on following number 2, right? Deliberate effectively. So you anchor it to, you're not breaking down the whole meeting. You're pulling to, you have your evidence that you use.
We'll have to see how it goes. I look forward to it. Okay, so I don't think this is an action item, but it's a consensus item, and I'm seeing nodding of the heads. And so briefly, is there anything else anyone wants to talk about with these other topics? I had one minor one I wanted to talk about. Barbara?
I want to do a mea culpa on page 5, visiting schools and community events. I'm been accustomed to moving about fairly freely on the campuses with invitations and permission from the principals. However, I want to feel that when students are asking for our input or participation in something, we don't have a lot of lead time. So I erred in that I did not communicate with the superintendent and with the president regarding my visit, and I'm sorry if it caused problems for folks. I won't do it again. However, I do want to acknowledge that in terms of responding to to teachers and students, for example, to visit a class for a presentation and so on, we may not have windows that are very long. So I think in the last invitation we had, the window was very short. So I'm just saying I apologize and won't do it again.
Thank you for that. And I think I think you're right that we want to maintain a connection and come to certain events, special things that might not be public events, if the teachers and or students would like to show that off to trustees, right? I think that's incredibly important. I do think Tara is very, I mean, anytime I've pestered her with an email, very quick in response. So, and I think the goal of this is to make sure that that we, and I'm not saying you are, right, but that many of us aren't a burden to the school or dropping in. And I'm not saying that you did that, but that the purpose is to allow the school to manage and have the superintendent know when trustees are going. And though our intent might be to just attend the event, sometimes people then use that as an opportunity to try and persuade a single trustee about various issues in the district. And so I think it's a good balance.
Yeah, I don't think I have too much to add other than when it's a protocol, if we don't follow protocol, it puts Tara in an odd position. That's all. It's not, it just does.
Can I speak to that too? I think also, how do I say this? I don't want people to think we're like, it's like I'm kind of a stranglehold on this board. That's not the point at all. The idea is, I mean, to me, it comes back to also speaking with one voice, that that we as a team are aware of what each other is doing, and that each everyone knows and has the same opportunities to gain the same access and information. You know what I mean? So, and it's not that anyone might, you know, like Barbara knows people, right? You were here Barbara was my mentor teacher, right? So I would, as a teacher, reach out and say, hey, come to this great thing. Not thinking, right? And Barbara's going to say, oh, yeah, I love that project you do. I've seen it before. I've now created an experience and information that one board member has that 4 others don't. You know, and it sounds silly and like but that is part of it. That is part of being a team and making sure that everybody has the same opportunities and access, because that is access to information within the district. And so I think that's more of the spirit behind this. You know, it's not for me to be a gatekeeper or for the principals to be a gatekeeper. It's one that we all know what's going on. Everybody knows that they have the opportunity to attend this or not. And you know, and then also we don't have 5 board members showing up in a classroom at one time, you know, that we as a team can also coordinate who's going to be there when. So it's really just sort of operational.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Any other item?
I don't think it's in here, and I don't know that it's necessary to put it in here if this is the understanding of the board. But at certainly public events, maybe like open houses, graduations, things like that, to make sure that we have at least one board member that's going to be present, so that we have coverage for it. So
Right.
it doesn't need to be in the protocol necessarily, but.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point.
Thank you, yeah. Mary's usually really good about that.
Well, I think this is helpful. We'll probably see things as we go in a way for a while as we go through the next few months. This is somewhat of a living document, I think. We'll try things, and maybe it's a good way for us to check in as a new board.
And will we have these in a folder that we'll get each month, or?
Would you like one in a folder?
Well, I do like the way Kentfield did it, right? So that it was just something that the secretary collected at the end, right? But and then it was just put out, and we also had them posted.
I think it'd be nice for each board member to take them home, because it's a reminder of what the protocols are, is all.
But not each board member may bring them back to the board meeting to read them out.
We'll have a copy.
Oh,
of them.
okay.
Yeah, we'll have a copy here, yeah.
We used to have them on the walls too, right? Was it 2 years ago? 3? When we had them posted? I wasn't here then, but I was in district then. I wasn't here.
Yeah, I was out there.
Yeah, but I think we had them. I think once we.
And then the public would point out to the board if they weren't following the norms back then. It was really friendly times. Yeah. So, okay, anything else before we go to our next item? Any other discussion? Any student trustee discussion? Okay, you'll be able to help evaluate also, because you're observing. So it'll be helpful to get your feedback. I think the next one, it looks like it's item G, discuss and approve board meeting dates.
Yeah, so we brought this to the last meeting as for next year, and the only thing we really just wanted people to think about was the 2 June dates, which are kind of far apart. June are very important board meetings, as we have to approve the budget. We have to preview and approve the LCAP in 2 consecutive meetings, and it has to be at the same meeting as the budget. We also have graduations in the middle of this month, and when playing around with different dates, a week apart at the end of the month really isn't enough time to make any kind of substantive changes that you might need to make. And having a board meeting during the week of graduation is sort of just crazy making for everybody involved. So hence we moved to June 2nd and June 23rd. So I just didn't want to make sure we point that out and see if anybody sees a major issue with the time span between those two.
remember last board meeting, there was some talk that if there was a board meeting in between those, it would be on the same night as Tamalpais' graduation. And frankly, like, that would be kind of interfering. As I know.
What do you mean?
As I know, a lot of you would, I would hope, want to go to Tamalpais' graduation.
Absolutely. That was a
Yeah.
big reason, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
So.
Yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure that's actually the day I graduate, so.
No, the following week.
No, it's the following
Yeah, so
week.
it's on
like a
June 2nd, so that it won't be on Tamalpais' graduation.
yeah.
Your
Yeah.
graduation would be
Exactly.
exactly a week later.
Okay.
Right, because in the past, we've had to leave early, and it was really problematic. So I'm glad it's working out this way. Yeah. Okay, so do we need to approve it?
Yeah.
Okay, can I ask for a motion? Wait, I guess I need to ask this. Is there a public comment on the calendar? Really? You sure? Okay, we'll move on then, and I'll ask for a motion. What did you say?
Nothing.
Okay. So we've discussed, and now I ask for a motion to approve the board meeting dates for 2019-20 school year.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Great, that passed. So now we'll move on to the items we pulled off the consent agenda to discuss and we'll approve separately. So the first one was item 14B, approved personnel summary for January, and I believe, Cynthia, that was your item that you had some questions or discussions
Right,
about.
and so I had a question because there were some leaves on there that were for a full year. And so how long do we grant leaves for in this district?
By contract, they are, leaves are approved on an annual basis, though our contract does state that after the third year, that essentially an employee makes a decision. It's a generous leave provision in the contract. So we do have a few folks on general leaves who are, I can think of one person in particular who has requested and been approved for a second year. But the bulk of the leaves, as you know, are related to child rearing, and they too are contractual. Happy to send you those passages specific to that question.
Thank you.
I don't need passages.
Okay.
Just that number.
Any other discussion?
One thing I should say, I'm sorry, is that leaves, though, certainly are at the discretion of the district and the board. But
With that, can I ask for approval a motion to approve the personnel summary for January 29th, 2019, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, next item that passed is item 14C, approved purchase orders over $40,000, and I don't have it in front of me, but I believe there was one that was, I just wonder if you could just expand on the item a little bit. It was $96,000, something like that.
Sure.
Okay.
This is for a student with a special education student who previously had a board-approved non-public school placement. This is not an additional new, it's just that the IEP team felt like the original placement was inappropriate and transferred to a different location with for more appropriate placement. So
Okay.
while this is new and additional, the previous one would be closed to offset that.
Okay, okay, thank you. Just wanted some clarity on that.
Of course.
Any other comment or question? Okay, so now I'm going to ask for a motion to approve item 14C, approve purchase orders over $40,000 for fiscal year 2018-19.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, that passed. Now we'll move on to trustee reports, and I know we're still somewhat in a transition period in terms of like the JLAC. I'm not sure, we need to get you the dates. Were either of you able to go to the JLAC? We'll get you the dates because I know you're new at it. Barbara, did you go? You didn't have it? Okay, okay.
Sacramento.
Okay,
It
oh,
was
you're right,
Legislative Action
okay.
Day.
Okay, legislative, okay. But do you have those dates, you and Kevin? Because we'll forward you the website. We'll do that. We'll put that on the, I thought of that just driving here today. We'll get you the dates.
Can I ask a quick question? Did we approve the consent agenda?
Yes.
I mean, the consent calendar?
Yeah, we did. And what we did was we just removed the two items that we just talked about.
Thanks.
No, that's fine. I did the same thing. No, I didn't believe me. Okay, so now, can we move on to Marin County School Board Association? Barbara, do you have any comment on that?
I think we're still negotiating about planning for a speaker and focus. However, it might be housing. We might be talking about that in view of all the district's concerns. But I hope that particularly the new trustees, will be able to attend, because I think it's important to be able to have the opportunity to meet some of the other trustees and the other superintendents who go. And so that's all I have to say about that.
And when is that?
We don't have a date set for sure.
Okay.
It hasn't been.
It's usually in March, is that?
Was that the dinner?
That's the dinner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
We did get something in an email. Yeah.
It was still, I think they were still trying to.
Oh, is that right? They just said
set
March? Okay.
dates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay, anyone want to share with the board fiscal advisor and LCAP committee information beyond what you probably already are? Kevin and Cynthia and Dan, I'm forgetting who's doing what on this. Yeah. Any?
I already said mine.
Okay, you just really appreciate everything they're doing. Okay, thank you. Lars Christensen, can you share anything about the Golden Bell with the board?
It's an exceptionally well-run meeting.
That's right, you're running the meeting.
We got our nomination forms.
Yeah, we have nomination forms.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Sending out, Mary does us a great service by coordinating the receipt of all of those, and we submit to the county. It's going to be an exciting event again, as it is every year. It'll be at Macon University. I believe it's May 23rd, but don't quote me on that. But wonderful event. We've got great participation from across the county. And we are, hard to believe, it's February on Friday, so we're getting closer to processing nominations, and we're taking care of all the business.
Okay, great. Thank you.
It's the Thursday before Memorial Day weekend, right? So,
Yeah.
Okay.
I can send you the date.
I think it's 21st, but yeah.
Okay. And we have a bullet here for additional updates. Is there anything else any trustee would like to share with the other trustees and student trustees in terms of any updates that we should know about?
Oops. I just wanted to comment about Friday's Drake's rally and that the presentation and recognition of the students there. I think it was an event. I got to sit with the sophomore girls on the bench. There was a palpable feeling of community, of the kind of engagement and inclusion that we've been talking about. You could feel it. It was a tearjerker for me, and I think lots of other folks. Prior to that in the evening, there was the Drake's open house, the explanation of the work that they're doing, examining the small learning communities was very clear, very transparent about the work. And as I walked around, particularly to all the small learning community open house sections, I was amazed at the depth and complexity of the projects and the work that the students were doing. Of course, I looked at the writing and the, I lost that. I was thrilled to see the text, too, in terms of equity that we're looking at. We have a lot more diversity in terms of African-American literature that we're seeing. So it was such a positive week. I was backing up to Wednesday and being with our student trustees, which was a thrill for me. But to hear what one of our graduates is doing for the state of California, and certainly for education, that we're getting he's listening to us. We're getting some fiscal breaks that we need, and hopefully will be ongoing. And what I heard from Dennis Myers, CSBA legislative analyst, our participation, our feedback to them is critical in moving legislative initiatives. So he was encouraging all of us to continue our work, lobbying and informing our assemblymen, anybody else who listened to us. So I was very encouraged by our efforts and our movement forward in terms of addressing our serious fiscal issues that all of California is facing. So I was very encouraged.
Thank you. I had the chance to go to Drake's open house too, and I second what Barbara said about the energy, and it was awesome to go back and see this one. And I say go back because that's where I did my student teaching, was in the Rock community. So it was great to go and see and hear from all the students, and looking forward to. Is our month of March where we've got an open house every Thursday night.
Yeah.
So for all the
Lined
other
up like
schools.
soldiers.
Yes. So exciting news to come.
I attended the community forums for the recommendations from the Fiscal Advisory Committee, just to hear input in terms of those, just different type of energy, but want to hear thoughts in the community in terms of just views on that and the budget for the future years.
Are there any themes or consistencies of what you heard that's worth sharing with the board?
I think it probably came up in the, I think BACR was the
big one
theme
there,
that just
yeah.
came up repeatedly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for going. I'm going to let Kevin speak real quick. Did you have anything, Kevin, that you wanted to share?
Just adding to what Cynthia was saying with regard to the fiscal advisory, I think people recognize the importance of the work and the imperative that the county has put on us to find $3 million. And in as much as there's a push-pull and there's a desire to, what if the governor's budget changes, and that affords us some slack, that everyone recognizes that we're making decisions relative to what we know now and the decisions we have to make now, and things that change in the future may allow us to make changes in the future, but that this is all coming to a head. And it seems that there's enough information coming to make a recommendation to Tara, to have Tara make a recommendation back to this, to the board. So, yeah, it's a process that is coming to its natural conclusion.
Thank you for that. That's helpful. And then let me move on to any of the student trustees.
I was just going to second that at TAM. I've heard a lot of buzz around BACR as well. I've heard students talking about it who don't even talk about their math class or like random things. I've just been like, oh, I'm surprised. I don't know, kids who didn't know what Measure J was are all of a sudden knowing what BACR is. So they're just saying it's been talking a lot about students. So yeah.
And go ahead.
I want to add something that I heard when we were in Sacramento. It left me a little uneasy, but some people, I don't know who, are talking about the work, the health care insurance, Medicare, whatever, in such that if we get universal coverage, that it's the idea will alleviate school districts for having to provide any health care. That's out there.
Interesting.
So that's pretty consequential. But I heard that.
Anything else? No? Okay, well, before we go to public comment, there is an item. I don't have a lot to say except that it's, that I want to share with the board. I also attended the rally at Drake, and it was everything you all said. It was, I actually kept taking little, what do you call them when you do it on your phone? I say videos to my kids, and they said, it's not a video. What is it when you do it on your phone? Can you call it a video? Anyway. Oh, you can't? Okay, they're wrong. Okay, so anyway.
It records live action.
I don't know. I'm always getting corrected. Even they're not even home. They're in college, and they give me grief. But anyway, and I was showing a friend of mine, and they didn't understand what I was showing. What I was having them hear was just all the cheering and the happiness. And it didn't even matter what they were saying. So I did want to share with the board. I've sent you an email with attachments on things that I think might be helpful that maybe transpired a year or two ago, or like an attachment. And I've started doing that, so you'll be getting some more from me, and you can read it or not read it. It's one of those things, and I'll try and be very discreet. But it has been actually made me more wanted to give more thanks to the administration. I've talked to Tara about it, but it's over the last few years of step by step, some of the decisions that have been made and actions that have been taken, and it's actually really, really helpful for me to refresh my memory more on the specifics, because so much of what we're looking at, it's like in a company or any organization when you have to turn around and make massive cuts overnight, which I'm sure we've all witnessed when something's happened at a company that something happens that you've just got to do it. I do want to thank the administrators, because we wanted to make thoughtful adjustments, and I think you've done an excellent job doing that. And I think I've always so focused on the year we're in, and then by looking back, I realize, wow, actually Tara and Lars and Corbett, you've been doing this for a long time, and it, especially when I hear things that the administrators are doing something at the last minute, and I think, no, Tara did this, 2.5 years ago or whatever it is, and the teacher leader program, I even forgot about that one. It's just, so it's been good. So I'm trying not to give you a bunch of PowerPoints, but at least the key, because I think where you'll find it helpful is that when I hear from the community sometimes, it makes it easier for me to say, well, no, actually, the enrollment committee 3 years ago looked at this, and here's what they found and wanted to do. It's just helpful history. So, because so much of this is a process, and being able to live by the process and making sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed when we have to make the difficult decisions as we move forward. So thank you to the administration. I know this is, like I said, it was a black and white to know what we're all facing, at the same time knowing what the process has been, and then being able to go to Drake's rally and remind us of why we're all doing it. So it was good. So now we're on to the next item, which is public comment for items not on the agenda, and I'll just read what's on our packet here to make it a little easier. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and provides this time for members of the audience to address the board on any school-related matter not on this agenda. The board can take no action at this time. Each speaker is requested to identify themselves prior to addressing the board and will be heard up to 3 minutes. The presiding officer of the board shall determine, based on time constraints of the board, whether some time less than 3 minutes shall be allocated to individual speakers. It's only 8 o'clock, and I think we can go for the 3 minutes. I don't see too many of you out there. So like I said before, I have 2 yellow cards, but if, I think those are old. Oh, no, we got 3 yellow cards. I take it back. And if there's more of you out there that want to comment, you're welcome to. These just help us with the meeting summary. And I do appreciate you filling this out. So if you don't mind, I'll call David Patterson, and then after David, I'll be calling Sarah Fry, and then I'll call Melissa.
Sarah and I present together?
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you. And if you, I started to see if you could identify yourself as I saw you going toward the mic, so I'll be quiet and let you identify yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Sarah Fry. I'm librarian at College of Marin, also library department chair and coordinator.
And I'm Dave Patterson. I'm also a faculty librarian.
So we are here tonight to encourage you to keep your certified librarians. We were here last year for the same reason, and we are pleased that you voted to retain your certified librarians. Tonight, we ask that you reaffirm the commitment you made last year. We've brought a letter from the president of the American Library Association and the president of the American Association of School Librarians, and we'd like to share the letter with you.
And the letter reads, Dear Superintendent Topier, President Harlander, and board members, less than 1 year ago, the TAM District Board of Education voted to retain certified school librarians after determining that their role in achieving the district's goals is integral, significant, and unique. Today, we ask you to reaffirm that vote and maintain your commitment to being a high-performing district that provides students with the resources to succeed in current and future endeavors.
We have attached a letter that American Library Association and the Association of School Librarians submitted to this board in March 2018. The evidence demonstrating how libraries support student achievement and growth has not changed, nor has the chorus of organizations calling for professionally staffed libraries in all K-12 schools. The district's strategic priorities have not changed either. What has changed is the ever-increasing array of information channels and the growing body of evidence that no matter what their personal, academic, or career path, students must develop the skills and dispositions to effectively and ethically engage with information from multiple sources and in various settings.
National school library standards for learners, school librarians, and school libraries provide the framework upon which those skills and dispositions are built. Certified librarians embed a continuum of literacies across the curriculum for authentic, inquiry-based, personalized learning. The framework aligns with content area and technology standards and facilitates students' examination of diverse perspectives and experiences, collaboration towards individual and common goals, curation of resources for personal and academic growth, reflective practices that nurture exploration and innovation, and capable and ethical use of information technologies.
Your professional librarians are also critical partners in advancing equity within the district. California's Department of Education cites research that shows how a strong school library program is a better predictor of scores on the high school English language arts test than other school variables such as teacher experience and teacher salary. On the U.S. history test, the library program is a better predictor of scores than both school variables and community variables, including parent education, poverty, ethnicity, and percentage of English language learners.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's been 3 minutes. Do you have much longer? It sounds really rude, but I'm sorry.
Well, do we each get 3 minutes?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yes.
We'll do it that way. Thank you.
And it's almost, this is the last paragraph.
Okay, yeah,
So
thank you
for your patience.
Yeah. Oh, no, I mean, I thank you
Sure.
for taking the time.
Of course. We recognize that the district is balancing a budget challenge with the strong expectations of a community that recently voted to invest in the promise of a TAM education. That promise of a high-quality education can only be fulfilled if students are prepared for thoughtful participation in a dynamic global society. We urge you to honor that promise and retain the certified school librarians who are integral to students' preparation and to the district's strategic objectives. And it's signed by Loida Garcia-Fabo, the president of the American Library Association, and Catherine Roots Lewis, the president of the American Association of School Librarians.
And we have also with us copies of the letter from last year that cites the research about how important the certified school librarians are. So I have copies of that, and we'll also email electronic copies of both letters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Melissa Bowman. I'm the librarian at Tamalpais High School. Today I would like to share some exciting news with you. As of January 20th, Los Angeles Unified School District has committed to hiring 41 teacher librarians for the 2019-2020 school year. For the 2021 school year, LAUSD will hire at least 41 teacher librarians so that each secondary campus has a full-time librarian 5 days per week. This was successfully fought for by the United Teachers of Los Angeles. The district shall comply with the teacher librarian staffing requirement contained in the collective bargaining agreement with the following provisions. A, the district shall hire an additional 41 full-time teacher librarian positions for the 2019-2020 school year. B, the district shall hire the remaining 41 full-time teacher librarian positions to ensure that every district secondary school has a full-time teacher librarian 5 days per week for every library facility located on a secondary school campus by the first academic day of the 2020-2021 school year. Included in the agreement regarding class size and staffing, teacher librarian services. The district shall provide one full-time teacher librarian 5 days per week for every library facility located on a secondary school campus. This is a victory for Los Angeles students and staffs whose libraries were drastically deprofessionalized in 2008 during that Great Depression. Sadly, other California school districts followed suit, while the rest of the nation's school districts looked on in dismay. I was a teacher librarian in Texas at that time, and as a North Hollywood High School graduate, I could hardly believe it. Regarding library services for Tamalpais Union High School District, our agreement between the district and Tamalpais Federation of Teachers states under Article 2, Section 2, Class Size, Item C, library media teacher, one position each at Tamalpais, Sir Francis Drake, and Redwood High Schools. Schools with an enrollment of 2,000 or more shall have an additional library media teacher. These provisions were put in the contract to ensure professionalized libraries for all of our students. Moreover, students at Tamascal and San Andreas continue to have access to TUHSD libraries. I know these are tight times financially, and we must continue to make the wisest decisions that benefit the population we serve. Study after study proves that student achievement is substantially higher for students who come from high schools that have librarians and library programs. This increase in scores exists regardless of student poverty level and overall staffing losses. Make that wise decision and continue to ensure that our students have continuous access to teacher librarians at their campuses now and later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Yes, sir. You could-
Fill out a form.
That's
My
okay.
name is Derek Hirai. I'm the manager of athletic trainers at UCSF. And I'm here to just discuss about the item about removing the contract for athletic trainers at with UCSF. And here mostly to advocate for the student athletes. In reading on the TAM district's website, the philosophy, part of the philosophy is that athletes play an important role too in helping the individual student develop a healthy self-concept as well as a healthy body. And the athletic code goes on to discuss that the athletic code of conduct, which is to promote the idea of healthy competition and to set standards of good sportsmanship for everyone involved, I think shows that athletics is an important role in student athletes' life, but also their safety. The athletic trainers help provide sports medicine care to 2,800 athletes here in the TAM district. Most people are not even aware that they exist on the campus unless they, from parents in the community, because they're the individuals behind the scenes. But they are the ones who are there when a student athlete has an injury, a spectator has an issue. They're the ones who help set up emergency action plans for all the athletic programs on campus and to ensure their safety on a day-to-day basis. In their absence, those responsibilities will fall to people without that type of training, such as a coach or an athletic director who may create a liability for the district, potentially, if they're stepping outside their boundaries or their skill set. And that concerns me, especially in this district where, you guys have had athletic trainers for a number of years. The MCAL also within the league, all the schools have athletic trainers. And so removing that would mean that the 3 schools within the TAM district would be without an athletic trainer, whereas the standard of care has already been set within the MCAL league. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment before I adjourn the meeting? Okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned.